Right now, at this exact moment, something is unfolding in the Middle East that most people still do not fully understand. And the most dangerous part is this: the next strike may already be in motion. As of March 17, 2026, more than 200 U.S. troops have been wounded. But that number is only the surface, because the real story is not the casualty count. The real story is why the attacks keep getting stronger instead of stopping. According to U.S. Central Command spokesperson Captain Tim Hawkins, around 200 service members have been injured since Operation Epic Fury began. Just a week ago, that number was around 140. Now it has crossed 200. And the attacks are not slowing down. They are accelerating, they are spreading, and they are getting more precise. So, before we go any further, ask yourself one question. If this is only the beginning, what does the end actually look like? Because once you understand the pattern, the entire conflict starts to look different. Iran has now launched its 57th wave of strikes. That number alone tells you this is not a short clash. This is a sustained campaign, and it is not losing momentum. In the last 72 hours alone, Iran launched 3 separate waves. Those were the 55th, 56th, and 57th strikes since the war began, and none of them were random. Iran is targeting the biggest American military installations in the Middle East. The command hub in Qatar has now been hit 3 times in 3 days. The airbase in the UAE has been hit repeatedly with cruise missiles. The naval base in Bahrain has also been targeted multiple times. These are not minor sites on the edge of the map. These are the pillars of American military power in the Gulf, and Iran is striking all of them in coordinated waves. That means the question is no longer whether the conflict is spreading. It already has. The question is how far it can go before something breaks. On March 15th, missiles and drones hit radar systems. They also hit control towers, air defense hangars, and fuel storage facilities. On March 16th, Iran escalated further. It launched what it described as hypersonic missiles toward Israel. Tel Aviv was mentioned, Ben Gurion Airport was mentioned, and at the exact same time, the same American bases were hit again. Hours later, another wave struck the command hub in Qatar. At the same time, a missile storage depot inside Israel was also hit. Then, on March 17th, that same base in Qatar was targeted again. 3 strikes on one facility in 3 days is not a coincidence. It is a message. And Iran's Navy added another layer of pressure. It reportedly struck fighter jet hangars in Bahrain and the UAE. This is not random chaos. This is a system. Iran is rotating weapons, hypersonic missiles, medium-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, explosive drones. That means this is not one operation. This is a sustained pressure cycle. And that is what makes it so difficult to stop. Because a single strike can be absorbed, but a rotating campaign can wear down even the strongest defense. According to Iran, the damage is already severe. The IRGC claims it destroyed a strategic radar system in Qatar. It says that system was worth $1 billion. It also says the airbase in the UAE has been severely disrupted. Iranian officials have described the strikes as a collapse of the American security umbrella. Those claims have not been independently verified. But the pattern itself is hard to ignore. The biggest U.S. bases in the Gulf are under sustained bombardment. And the strikes are not slowing down. They are becoming more relentless by the hour. Explosions have already been reported in Dubai. Emergency alerts have gone out across Doha. Saudi Arabia has been intercepting drones almost daily. Schools in Qatar have shifted to remote learning. Ramadan public gatherings have been suspended. Civilian life is starting to change. And when civilian life changes this fast, that usually means the pressure is already everywhere. But the most important part of the story has not even been revealed yet. Because the 200 wounded soldiers do not explain the worst strike. They do not explain how this conflict keeps getting more dangerous. And they do not explain why the Pentagon's own strategy may have failed. So stay with me, because the next part changes everything. The deadliest attack on U.S. forces did not happen at a fortified bunker. It happened at a civilian port in Kuwait. Port Shuaik was never supposed to become the headline, but it did. On March 1st, one day after the war began, an Iranian drone struck a backup command post there. The structure was described as a triple-wide trailer. It was surrounded by concrete barriers. Those barriers were meant to stop car bombs. They were never designed to protect against a strike from above. 6 soldiers died inside that building. They were part of the 103rd Sustainment Command. It was an Army Reserve logistics unit out of Des Moines, Iowa. Their mission was not frontline combat. They moved food. They moved fuel. They moved water. They moved ammunition. Major Jeffrey R. O'Brien was among the dead. Captain Cody A. Cork was killed too. Sergeant First Class Nicola Memore was killed. Sergeant First Class Noah L. Teachins was killed. Sergeant Declan J. Cody was only 20 years old. He was promoted posthumously. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Robert Minamarzan, also died. His remains were not positively identified until days later. The fire had burned so intensely that recovery took time. And that is not even the full impact of the strike. More than 30 service members were hospitalized from that single attack. Brain trauma, shrapnel wounds, severe burns. Some may never fully recover. At least one service member may require amputation. That is the kind of damage that changes lives forever, not because the number is large, but because the target was supposed to be safe. And then CBS News reporting revealed something even more alarming. The Pentagon had not initially described the strike accurately. The attack was worse than officials first admitted, and the hidden details matter, because they reveal how exposed these positions really were. Now the question becomes impossible to ignore. How did Iran find the target so precisely? How did the drone get through? Why was there no effective counter-drone shield? And why did the warning system fail? According to reports, drones had been seen scouting the area beforehand. Small quadcopter drones were observed conducting surveillance. GPS transponders attached to balloons were later recovered near Patriot missile batteries. That means the site was being mapped in advance. It was being watched before it was hit. That is what makes the strike so disturbing. Because this was not blind fire. It was prepared fire. Multiple military officials confirmed the facility had zero counter-drone capability. Requests for drone defense systems had been submitted. They were never fulfilled. One official put it bluntly, quote, "We basically had no drone defeat capability," end quote. And if that were not bad enough, the warning sirens failed too. The alarm system did not activate before the strike. Think about what that means. A target was mapped, it was observed, it was left vulnerable, and then it was hit with no warning. Nicole Amori's husband later said his wife had been placed in a shipping container-style building. It had no overhead protection, and she had been there for a week before the drone strike. The Pentagon calls the dispersal strategy "get off the X." It was meant to spread people out. It was meant to make targeting harder. But dispersal alone is not enough if protection is missing. And that is exactly the problem. Stay with me, because the next casualty event is even stranger. On March 12th, the KC-135 Stratotanker crashed in western Iraq. It went down near Turabil, along the Iraqi-Jordanian border. The call sign was Zeus 95. 6 airmen died. Major John A. Clare was killed. Captain Ariana G. Savino was killed. Tech Sergeant Ashley B. Pruitt was killed. Captain Seth Araval was killed. Captain Curtis J. Angst was killed. Tech Sergeant Tyler H. Simmons was killed. 3 were from the 6th Air Refueling Wing at MacDill in Florida. 3 were from the 121st Air Refueling Wing at Rickenbacker in Ohio. 2 aircraft were involved in the incident. 1 went down, the other landed safely. It was reportedly photographed in Israel with the top of its tail fin sheared off. CENTCOM said neither hostile fire nor friendly fire caused the crash. Officials believe it may have been a mid-air collision, but that answer creates another problem. Why is this happening now? Why are support aircraft under this kind of stress? Because the KC-135 fleet is old, very old. On average, these aircraft are more than 66 years old. The last one was delivered in 1965. Only 376 remain on active duty. They were built for another era. They were built on the same Boeing 707 airframe that once carried passengers half a century ago. Now they are flying continuous sorties through some of the most crowded military airspace in decades. That matters. Because fuel tankers are not glamorous, but they are essential. Without them, bombers do not reach their targets. Without them, fighters do not return safely. Without them, the whole air campaign starts to wobble. About a dozen B-1 bombers are currently staged at RAF Fairford in England. More than half the operational fleet depends on these tankers to reach Iranian airspace and return. So when one tanker crashes, it is not just one aircraft lost, it is a warning signal for the entire campaign. The Islamic resistance in Iraq claimed it shot down the KC-135. The Pentagon denies that claim. But this was the 4th crewed American aircraft loss in the war. The week before, 3 U.S. F-15s were downed in a friendly fire incident by Qatari air defenses. All 6 crew ejected safely. Roughly a dozen MQ-9 Reaper drones have also been destroyed. That means the air war is becoming more chaotic by the day. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said, quote, "War is hell, war is chaos, and as we saw yesterday with the tragic crash of our KC-135 tanker, bad things can happen," end quote. But that is not an explanation. That is a man trying to normalize a tempo the fleet was never designed to sustain. On the Iranian side, the numbers tell their own story. More than 1,400 Iranians have been killed. More than 18,000 have been wounded. UNICEF reported on March 12th that over 100 children have been killed or injured across the region since the war began. That includes 200 children dead in Iran and 91 in Lebanon. The United States has struck more than 7,000 targets inside Iran. It has sunk or damaged over 100 Iranian naval vessels, and it has deployed more than 50,000 troops. Israel's Air Force struck 500 military targets in western and central Iran. It used 200 fighter jets and more than 200 bombs in the first 24 hours alone. Hezbollah has entered the fight. Israel has launched a ground incursion into southern Lebanon. A French service member was killed in Iraq's Kurdistan region. And now the diplomatic off-ramp is disappearing fast. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Iran is not seeking a ceasefire. He said Iran has not sent a single message requesting one. His position is that the war must end in a way that guarantees these attacks are never repeated. That is not diplomacy. That is deterrence language. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian told French President Emmanuel Macron that Iran is not prepared for talks until there are guarantees of no further strikes. And that changes the entire trajectory of the war. Because if neither side is ready to step back, then the conflict keeps widening on its own. Trump was asked whether he received intelligence briefings warning that Iran would retaliate against Gulf states like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, and Kuwait. His response was, quote, "Nobody? No. The greatest experts? Nobody thought they were going to hit," end quote. That means either the intelligence community failed to anticipate the most obvious retaliation logic in the conflict, or the briefings were delivered and ignored. Either way, the consequences are serious. Congressman Adam Kinzinger said publicly that Trump's biggest mistake is not preparing the American people for what this war would cost. And now we come to the part that affects everyone watching, the global economy, because this is where everything connects. The Strait of Hormuz is effectively sealed. The IRGC confirmed the closure on March 2nd. Shipping through the strait has been severely disrupted. Reuters reported that at least 150 tankers anchored beyond the strait. Another 100 vessels were outside it. Major shippers suspended traffic or rerouted it. Qatar declared force majeure on gas exports. 147 container ships sat trapped in the Persian Gulf. Oil surged past $100 a barrel from $65 before the war. Supertanker freight rates hit a record $423,000 per day. Every major marine war risk insurer pulled coverage. Qatar Energy declared force majeure on all LNG shipments after Iranian strikes on Ras Laffan facilities. That wiped out 20% of global LNG supply in one announcement. Iran is allowing ships from India, Pakistan, Turkey, and China through selectively. China gets 45% of its oil through this waterway. Iran continues shipping millions of barrels to Beijing, while the strait stays shut to every American ally. Trump called for a naval coalition including China, France, Japan, South Korea, and the UK. Germany said no. Greece said no. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said, quote, "We will not be drawn into the wider war," end quote. Not one country has fully committed. And that leaves the world staring at a brutal reality. This war is no longer only about missiles, drones, or military bases. It is about whether the global energy system can survive this level of pressure. It is about whether Washington and Tehran actually have a plan to stop the spiral. And right now, neither capital has shown one. The question is no longer how this war started. The question is whether anyone can still control where it goes next. As of this morning, that answer still looks terrifyingly unclear. If this is only the middle of the conflict, then the next phase could be far worse. And if the Strait of Hormuz stays under pressure, the economic shock will not stay regional. It will hit fuel, shipping, food, insurance, and prices everywhere. That is why the story is not just about war anymore. It is about what happens when one conflict starts pulling the whole world with it. If you want to stay updated on this situation, subscribe to Market Mindset. Like the video, share it, and drop your opinion in the comments. Do you think this war is getting out of control? And who do you think is actually winning right now? I'll see you in the next video.